Hey, folks, welcome to another edition of Broken Brains with your host, Bruce Parkman, sponsored by the amazing Mac Parkman Foundation, where we look at the issue of repetitive brain trauma, from repetitive head impacts from contact sports to repetitive blast exposure in our veterans community, and what these conditions are doing to the brains of our kids, our athletes, and our veterans, and which is causing the largest preventable cause of mental illness in this country. And why is this important? Because you don't know about it. It's not trained in our nursing, medical, and psychological communities. This is a emerging phenomena that's affecting millions of Americans. And we reach out to patients and advocates and researchers and players and all kinds of folks to give you that 360-degree perspective on this issue, so that you can make informed decisions about yourselves, your children's, and your children, and those that you love. On our show today, another amazing guest, Mr. Brandt McCartney, not to be confused with Paul McCartney. He's almost as famous. He's one of the most well-connected young men I ever met. This amazing young man has been through the entire ringer, from the loss of his brother to suicide related to both repetitive head impacts and repetitive blast exposure, his own challenges and mental health struggling, and he's very, very open about it. Some of the modalities have, and he's turned this into a mission to help others. And he works with athletes, veterans, parents. He's got an amazing foundation, the 38 Challenge, which we're going to talk about in depth. And he's also the founder of the Brain Optimization Lab, and the co-founder with Jordan Reed, an NFL player. This young man has done an amazing job. He's young, but he's driven, he's energetic, and he understands what this issue is all about, and we couldn't be happier to have him on the show today. Brandt, how you doing, man?
Doing well, brother. It's a pleasure to be here, and love the mission, love the podcast, and looking forward to jumping into it.
Yeah, man. So tell our audience, man. Tell us a little bit about yourself, man. How did you get here, man?
For sure. Yeah. So you summarized it a little bit, but 4 years ago, unfortunately lost my brother, United States Marine Captain Matthew Brewer, and former Navy linebacker number 38, to suicide. That's why I've got 38 everywhere. And so when we lost Matt, just as you with Mac were rudely introduced to the world of brain injuries, mental illness, and what that can do to someone, I started the nonprofit, the 38 Challenge. So Matt and I love doing intense exercise together, right? He would wake me up early in the morning. I'd be like, dude, what the hell? Let me go back to bed. And he'd say, no, get out. Come on, let's go out. Let's go work out. So to honor Matt, I created a warrior workout, right? Kind of similar to the Murph Challenge, 38 Challenge. So what is the 38 Challenge? 38 Challenge is a 38-minute AMRAP, as many rounds as possible, of a 400-meter run, 38 sit-ups, 38 push-ups, 38 squats. You do as many rounds as you can in 38 minutes. However, the beautiful thing about suffering, and what I wanted the workout to mean, is really the purpose behind it. And that is to voluntarily place yourself in an uncomfortable situation and to lean on others while suffering, right? Because that's what we have to do to challenge the mental health stigma. So we've had at our events, our workout events, our next one's coming up May 6th during Soft Week, but we've had toddlers crawling for 38 minutes, to geriatric population, walking upstairs, to professional athletes knocking out 12 rounds, adaptive athletes, customizing the workout for them. So long as you're using 38 as a variable to suffer, then you're doing the 38 Challenge correctly. So originally, when I started the 38 Challenge, we partnered with the Concussion Legacy Foundation, who's doing great work. And all the money went towards supporting post-mortem brains and war fighters and athletes, right? So we can understand what's going on in the brain. Things like CTE, astrogliosis, that kind of stuff. Again, amazing and very, very necessary work. I got the personal conviction that I wanted to shift our focus towards providing solutions to help people now, rather than research people's brains when they're gone, right? Again, I think both equally as important. So then I created the Brain Optimization Lab, again, in partnership with Jordan Reed. And really, we're a Trojan horse as a human performance company. And our value proposition is that, as you know very well, Bruce, being a high performer comes with its own unique challenges, especially when you deal with brain injuries and trauma, right? So as a Green Beret yourself, you have both of those things, both in service and out of service, obviously. And so what really we're trying to do is, let's say you have a multi-million-dollar operator, or, if you're Jordan Reed and you're a $30 million athlete, but you're dealing with depression, anxiety, you're not sleeping, you have troubles outside the house due to your brain injuries and due to the stress of the occupation, then how can we expect that multi-million-dollar asset to perform at its highest potential when you're dealing with things like depression, anxiety, right? You and I both know that, you're like, you saw me when I was at my worst, like way different than you see now, right? And so you cannot expect high performing people to achieve greatness if they're dealing with the consequences that come with being a high performer. So that's really what we're after, man. Obviously, Bruce, you've been with this mission since day one, and it's a blessing and a curse. Blessing and a curse.
And so haven't you. But hey, let's honor your brother a little bit. Tell us about Matt, man. What was he like, man? Because he sounded like, every time you tell stories, man, I know, he sounded like just, he was a beast, man.
He was a beast. So yeah, I got Matt's dog tags tattooed on my back, attached to a crown of thorns next to a cross when he was alive. So he pretty much raised me. He I remember he was 10 years older than I was, right? So he was the stud middle linebacker, running back on the football team. So I'd see these girls out by the pool with belly button rings when I was like 6 years old, and I grew up really fast. Yeah, I'll tell you a funny story about Matt. So a couple funny stories. So when I was younger, right, like I wanted to be cool, right, and so and Matt would always let me hang around his friends, and which is, obviously looking back at it, like that was a cool thing for him to do, because I was probably annoying, very annoying. But they would always party in our basement, right? And obviously he didn't want my mom to find out. So I remember there was one time there was a Jack Daniels that was hanging out under my brother. I was like 6 or 7, and there was a Jack Daniels peeking out under my brother's bed. And my mom and I went downstairs to go like clean up or whatever. Or just like check out the basement. And I saw this Jack Daniels hanging out of the bed. And as a 6-year-old, I knew what it was. And I knew that my brother shouldn't have been doing that. I was like, Mom, what's that? What's that? And I kicked the Jack Daniels underneath the bed so she wouldn't see it. And just like so many stories like that, man, of me being just growing up fast around my brother, trying to save his ass. And then he went into the Naval Academy. And then he grew up very fast, obviously, as the academy does, and it matures you and turns you into a leader. But yeah, Matt, he was, those who knew him, he was very soft spoken, a man of few words, but when he spoke, it was with everyone would stop and listen. There was a letter that one of Matt's commanders wrote to him when he was in the Marine Corps. I wrote to my mom after Matt passed, and they just described Matt. He said the first time that we shook his hand, he just had this it factor, right? He was a 230-pound guy, rips, 8-pack abs, and again, well-spoken, very humble. And yeah, there's another story I just heard a couple of weeks ago where Matt was the captain of this platoon, right, in the Marine Corps, and they were doing an exercise during training, and they were climbing up this mountain, right? A really tall, a tall mountain. They all had a bunch of rucks on. And there's this guy who was at this is coming from the perspective of the guy who told me the story, but this guy was at the very end of the pack with this ruck and was like barely making it. And he was holding up the rest of the group, and he was struggling and was, probably going to tap out. And Matt was at the top of the pack, obviously leading everyone, went to the back, took this guy's, as he already had his own ruck, took this guy's ruck, carried it like a freaking duffel bag up the rest of the mountain so this guy could make it up with the rest of the people. Matt had his ruck and then carried this other guy's ruck like a duffel bag. And yeah, just so many stories like that, man, of just him being incredibly tough, resilient, and he led with his actions more than his words every single time.
Well, bro, you're making him proud. and your dedication to him and his life, you know, his stories, keeping his legacy going, is very admirable. Because, you know, in our space where we've lost loved ones, and it can be any loved one, right? Your loss is no greater or less than mine, right? And we owe it to them, but very, very few of us can get up the next day and keep going. And that's what our small community needs, is more people like you that gets up and says, enough is enough. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to mourn anymore. I'm going to do. And action in our space is lacking, whether it's legislation, whether it's public policy, whether it's informed parents. I mean, nobody's doing anything. And that's why, you know, what you're doing right now is absolutely amazing. And as a caution to all of our parents and all of our listeners out there, you know, tell us about, you know, Matt did about everything wrong you could do when it comes to subconcussive trauma, man. I mean, the guy was just like, you know, Mac played back-to-back sports and snowboarded. Tell us a little bit as a cautionary tale, right?
For sure.
Towards our audience, so they understand, you know, it wasn't just being in the Marine Corps or playing football that was, you know, the cause of Matt's problem.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it was multifaceted. I think his favorite thing to do is get hit in the head. Looking back.
Sounds like the hockey guy we interviewed yesterday.
Yeah,
I just like to fight, you know. Yeah.
I mean, so another Matt story. He first started playing baseball. So Joe Buck was this Jack Buck, the father of Joe Buck, the Monday Night Football guy. He was a famous announcer in St. Louis. And Jack Buck, after my brother's a half sibling, after his father passed away, my brother's father, Jack Buck, kind of took Matt under his wing, and he was like a grandfather to Matt. So Matt was around baseball right growing up, and so they put Matt in baseball, and he was so bad. From what I hear, he was horrible. So, I mean, he didn't have a hit all season, not one hit all season. And it was like the last game of the season, like all the parents were like hoping that Matt would just at least like get a foul ball or something. Like, he was brutal. And last game of the season, he struck out again, went hitless the whole season. And then, like, parents were crying, dude. Like, it was like devastating. And the next year, Matt found out about wrestling, got into wrestling, and just dominated wrestling. He was probably, I think, again, like 8 years old. And he found his thing, right? And then after that, he got into football and, again, just dominated in football. So Matt started playing football when he was around 9 years old, 10 years old. And then fast forward to, high school, Matt is a all-state wrestler. He's all-state linebacker and all-state running back. The game plan was give Matt the ball and Matt stopped the other team, right? Like, he was the whole. That was pretty much the game plan. So, we've talked to. I talked to one of Matt's old coach, who was also my coach at the time, and he expressed to me, he goes, "Man, I feel guilty. Like, we gave the ball so many times." Like, dude, he didn't know. But I mean, it was that, like, he had, he was touching the ball every play. And there was one story of a linebacker who was 2 years younger than Matt, and Matt literally, like, not figuratively, but literally broke his helmet in half because he hit him so hard in the head that Matt broke his helmet, and the top of the helmet cracked. He broke the helmet. And then he took that same mentality. Like, he wasn't the biggest, he wasn't the fastest, but he was the most aggressive football player on the field, and he was fearless. Like, that was just how, like, how people knew Matt. So then he takes that to the Naval Academy. I remember one play specifically, I think it was against Notre Dame. It was against Notre Dame. Matt was the headhunter his freshman year at the academy. And meaning so what a headhunter is that it's on kickoff, and your goal is to run as fast as you can and to hit the lead blocker of the guy who's receiving the ball, to hit him as hard as you can so that other people can come and tackle the ball carrier. That was the job of the headhunter. And that was Matt's job. Perfect guy for the job. But I remember this specific play versus Notre Dame, Matt was on kickoff, hit this dude, in the helmet, and it literally sounded like there was a car accident in the stadium. Like people went silent because the hit was so loud. And Matt got up, and then he walked over to the Notre Dame sideline, not Navy.
Wow.
Got up, walked over to the Notre Dame sideline, not diagnosed with a concussion or anything because he would never say that. But then they were like, "Yo, you're on the wrong sideline," and then he went back to the Navy sideline. But that's how. I mean, that was Matt. So I think the cautionary piece of this is, and we talk about it all the time, Bruce. But I don't know if Matt would have changed anything about his life because he loved the game of football so much. However, it's our job as a society with legislation, with rules to be put in place to protect kids, right? Kids are going to do what kids want to do, but it's just like you can't have a kid shotgunning a beer at 10 years old, even though he wants to, right? That's irresponsible. So we have to have those same sort of laws in place to protect kids' brains for guys like Matt, right? And like Mac. So I think that's the cautionary piece of all that.
And dude, didn't he fit in some boxing and all that too?
So yeah, there's also that. So yeah, so then he also, so he was also heavyweight boxing champion at Navy, and then he served in the Marine Corps for 8 years after that, doing heavy artillery and special operations. So.
And that was the other side that I want folks to know. Matt's case crosses both sides of repetitive brain trauma because then he became an artilleryman. And, there was a recently leaked report from the VA associating, suicidality with higher levels of subconcussive trauma in certain military occupational specialties. Artillery is right there at the top of the hit. And everybody saw Dave Phillips' article on those Marines, artillery guys from Syria that were just chucking rounds all day. And I think half the platoon was dead from suicide just from the impact on these brains. So now we're talking about a poor young man who loved sports, and sports, loved him. And then he joins the military, does what else he loves. And all that trauma is why, we are losing our young men and women, that unknowingly are doing this. And that's why you and I and others are focused on, creating awareness, because Matt should be here, right? Mac should be here, and they're not. And we have, now we understand our mistakes, and we can fix this, right? We can. Nobody's talking about getting rid of the Marine Corps, and nobody's talking about getting rid of football. It's how do we train better and become lethal, and then how do we, also make our sport safer through lowering the amount of contact. But yeah, no, amazing story, amazing man. I wish I could have met him, man. Sounds like the kind of guy I want to,
For sure. Yeah, you guys would get along. Another Matt story with just on the, I'm not sure how deep you want to get into this, but just with the blast exposure stuff. I remember he told me a story one time. There's a lot of things he couldn't tell me, but I remember, when he was training, he went and he told me one time, I think there was there's a limit of how many rockets you could shoot off, right, with heavy artillery. Mm-hmm. And Matt being Matt, I think the limit was 2 or 3, and he shot off 8. And then he blacked out, didn't remember how he got home from shooting off those rockets, right? So that's, throwing up, blacked out, didn't remember how he got home, clear signs of concussions. But he, nor do people in the military in general, draw that link where it's hey, I just shot off 8 rockets when I was supposed to shoot off 2, and now I'm having concussive symptoms, severe concussive symptoms, but to them it's just another day on the job, right? This is just something that happens, but it's that's obviously a clear indicator of severe traumatic brain injury, something that no one put together.
And that brings up a good point because when he's a leader, right? And so as a leader, while a lot of people don't think, oh, well, he doesn't shoot the mortars or shoot the artillery gun, he's usually present when those things are going off because he's monitoring his men and women, right? He's got to be there. So, by virtue of his job, plus nobody wants to bring the dang rounds home and turn them in anyway. So that's just
right.
Get rid of them and bring back the brass, right? So, no, that's, I'm not surprised. It happens in the military all the time. We have restrictions, but we got to train Sometimes people don't show up. You have extra rounds lying around. There's so much fun to shoot, right? You're like, hey man, give me that, dude, and you just start uncorking them and dropping them down range, and it's what you do, right? So what was the impetus for you to start the 38 challenge? I mean, you didn't curl up, right? No, obviously we mourn, right? We all mourn, right?
Of course.
But you get to a point in your grief where, and I don't even know if you were aware of why Matt wasn't around. Did you, I don't know. You tell us about what was the genesis of 38
For
challenge, and how'd you get to that resolution point in your grief where you said, I got to do something?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost, I attribute it to God and that this was his path for me. Because I think there could have been definitely another, it's both God having this part of my path and being obedient. Because there is another side of this where I'm not doing this and I'm in a very dark spot, right? Which unfortunately happens to a lot of people. But so when Matt got out of the Marine Corps, right? He operated in Mali, was in charge of a team of special operators from across the world, right? I think it was a unit of like 12 people, all operating with the United Nations in Mali. Matt was their captain, so a couple SF guys, a couple MARSOC guys, and then other operators from other units around the world. At least from my understanding of what has been told to me. And when he got back from that, after that he retired because he was at this kind of fork in the road, which I don't think is uncommon for military folks, where Matt was 31 years old. If I stay in, it's going to be hard for me to start a family. I really want to start a family. I don't know if I want to make the Marine Corps my entire life and my career. Maybe I want to get out and try something else. And then while getting out, obviously, as all servicemen or athletes do, is when that uniform comes off, then you struggle with identity, right? You struggle with identity, you struggle with purpose, you struggle with what to do. So when Matt was transitioning out of the Marine Corps, he moved back in home to St. Louis, which in and of itself is, as the quote unquote Captain America of the Marine Corps, having to move home with your with your parents in St. Louis, like that's, again, not uncommon as people try to figure out the next step of their career. And so I was very fortunate to spend a lot of time with Matt the 3 months before he took his life. And we got very close during that time, not close verbally because he did not speak a lot of words there, but I could tell that me being around Matt was helping him. Or at least he felt comfortable around me. He always wanted to be around me, which as a younger brother is like the greatest honor ever, right? Especially when you've put this guy on a pedestal your whole life.
Who doesn't want to hang out with Captain America, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we did a lot of things together during that time. But I looking back at it now, like in the moment, obviously, especially when you're uneducated, you don't recognize the symptoms, right? But looking back at it, Matt's would have just like outbursts of anger, right? I remember one time, like I seasoned a steak wrong, and like he got pissed off, and I was like, dude, what's your deal? Like it's not a big deal. But looking back, it's like in the conversations we have with people is like this, that again, not uncommon, erupting and having anger about things that you shouldn't be angry about, right? That's a common symptom of traumatic brain injury, depression, anxiety, those types of things. So long story short, I felt like towards the end of the time with him, it felt this like weird anxiety that I felt, and like tension that like something's not right. Again, I couldn't put a finger on it during the time. So fast forward a little bit, Matt goes to Kansas City to become a firefighter, right? I go back to school at Texas Christian University to finish off the semester. This was right after COVID. And it had been a couple weeks since Matt and I spoke, since he moved to Kansas City. And we texted each other like, hey man, love you. How have you been? Want to hear about Kansas City. Let's talk on Valentine's Day, right? This was like 4 or 5 days before Valentine's Day that we were texting. Valentine's Day comes around, and I remember looking at my phone with Matt's contact pulled up, And I didn't call him because I didn't want to feel that anxiety and that tension that I felt in St. Louis between him and I, because something was not right with him, right? And I thought it was because he didn't have his passion, his purpose, and he was going to find that in Kansas City. So I didn't call him on that Valentine's Day in 2021, and he did not call me. And then a couple of days later, I got the phone call from my mom that Matt had killed himself, and I never got to have that last conversation with him. So for me, the genesis of the 38 challenge is I'm never going to not have that hard conversation ever again, right? And I'm going to do anything in my power to empower others to have those hard conversations with people with their lives, whether you're someone in Matt's position or someone in my position. So that was kind of the genesis of it. And I thought, what better way to honor Matt than do a brutal workout, right? Something that he would have found challenging, that I find challenging, and that, again, we can empower other people to do hard shit. And asking for help and being vulnerable, in my opinion, is the hardest thing that you can do, because you look at Captain America, who was the highest achiever in anything that he ever did. He didn't have the strength, and it's not a dig at him or a dig at anyone, but that's how hard it is asking for help is that difficult. The guy who did all the difficult things didn't ask for help, right? So we're trying to change the culture around being vulnerable and asking for help. And then when we found out about CTE, through one of Matt's old teammates, who reached out to my mom and said, "Hey, Mrs. Brewer, I really think that Matt struggled with traumatic brain injuries. You should look into this." Then it all kind of clicked. And then we kind of went down this journey and endless rabbit hole of brain injuries, blast exposure, trauma, and all the issues that come with being, a high performing person, especially those who operate and play sports.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's getting people to talk, right? And whether, my son, I go over this a million times, man. Why didn't he tell me? What didn't I notice? And then, of course, then you get your own cycle where you start blaming yourself for not noticing things. Or then you notice something, it's like, man, I should have dug into that, or I should have checked into him, see if he was sleeping. And and I end up in the end, you were a good brother, right? And you loved your brother, and there's nothing, from the the guilt side that you could have done other than pray that he could have said something. And the problem that the big problem that we had back then, when your brother and my son left us, was that we did not know that this issue was treatable. Right. There was, and that's, that's the whole other side of this movement, is like, when the hell are we going to stop researching this shit and start doing something about it? And that men and women that are suffering, whether they're wrestlers and MMA fighters or EOD techs in the military, are aware that, yeah, you might be anxious and depressed and even suicidal. But if it's been caused by repetitive blast or repetitive brain trauma, dude, we can help you, right? We can do something about it.
It's not and so another thing, Bruce, is the last thing that my brother Googled before taking his life, because we got access to his computer, was what happened to Junior Seau, what happened to Junior Seau's family. So my brother knew, and he had Googled and researched CTE. So my brother knew that something was wrong. And then at the time, and still even a little bit to today, which I think is what you and I are trying to change, is this fear mongering of, in this all these disaster stories of, hey, if I have CTE, I'm going to turn into this homicidal or suicidal maniac, and I'm going to hurt myself and the people around me, which in the past, yes, can be true. But to your point, Bruce, it's like, there's anything out there that's an injury, there are ways to overcome the challenges associated with that injury.
And that's what I get pissed about. I mean, even to this day, right? We deal with some NFL players that don't want to talk about this because they think they're done, right? They don't want to know. They're just waiting to become Junior Seau. It's like, bro, we can do. You got to talk about this. Like the other day, I met a singer and a lead singer in a band, played mass amounts of football. His wife comes up to us. They're talking about his past, his struggles. I'm like, dude, we can help. He won't return my calls, my texts. I'm like, and that's what I don't know what I'm more pissed off about this whole subject at all. But what I don't like is that after all these years of talking about CTE, we're still talking about CTE, and everything we hear about CTE is like you're going to die, right? Or your brain is damaged, and all this stuff. Nobody talks about, hey, we can help people with CTE, right? I mean, you can fix this. You can, and now, can we cure it? No, it's a brain, but we can make the brain better. We can make the symptoms subside and all that. And dude, you know this. So let's talk about that transition, because when I met you a long time ago at the Concussion Legacy Foundation, where all us soul survivors of these crazy tragedies kind of link up and we find each other, right? Let's talk about your transition from, hey, I want to do a workout for my brother, to your deeper dive into the science of why he left, and then now transitioning to a purpose where, you are in essence, you and Jordan are leading a movement to say, all right, you can play sports, but afterwards we're going to do the best we can while you're playing, and afterwards, guess what, dude? You're going to enjoy your blank, right? Nobody's hearing that part. So talk to us about what you got going on, man.
For sure. Yeah, and I think just one point too you made, Bruce, is, and the frustrating thing and the thing that we all have to come to terms with is that if someone doesn't want help, we can't help them. If they're not willing to put in the work and ask for help, then there's nothing that we can do. And I wish that was not true. Genuinely, I do. But that's just the truth, man. But I think what we can do is we can change the messaging around it, empower people, and let them know and show them that this is hope, that there is hope, so that hopefully they do raise their hand and ask for help.
Right, but who wants to ask for help when they think it's hopeless, right? Exactly. It's like, and I think that's what your brother and my son both struggled, with acute schizophrenia, major mood disorders. And it's like, dude, this is the rest of my life. I don't want to tell my folks I'm checking out, man, but I can't go on like this because there's no hope, right? It's not like cancer. I can go to get treatments or something, right? There's something that can be done. My son didn't even know why he was struggling. Your brother had a clue, but of course, when you dig into it, it's like you're going to die. So, or the rest of your life's going to be a disaster. I mean, so they have no hope, and you're providing hope. So talk about that, man.
For sure. So,
great.
Yeah. So I would when we went down the rabbit holes of like, CTE, blast exposure, trauma, those types of things, it was like, it made a lot of sense to me, but my thought immediately went to, I'm a problem solver. My thought immediately went to, okay, so how do we solve this problem? Like, okay, here's a problem. We're aware of it. How do we solve it? So then I started looking at, what happens with brain injuries, trauma, high stress environments, like what's happening in the body and in the brain. And so when you start to look at the root causes, right, of what these things are causing, like inflammation in the brain, and the death of certain parts of the brain and the death of neurons. Like, you look at all these things, and you look at low traumatic brain injuries and high stress causing low testosterone, and you see all these different moving parts. I looked at the root causes, and then I tried to find technologies that were evidence-based that would have mechanisms that would potentially go after those root causes, right? So that was what I began researching. So I got into things like hyperbaric oxygen and psychedelics and photobiomodulation or red light therapy, sauna, cold plunge, right? All these, and notice how none of these are pharmaceutical interventions, but they all are things that occur naturally within the body and get to the root cause of what Mac experienced and my brother experienced in the body and in the brain. So I started just doing that research. And when I started to mention these things to leaders in the scientific community, I got a lot of pushback. Oh, that's smoke and mirrors, that's snake oil. We've been approached by all these different things, like none of them work. And I was like, but these 100 different research articles say otherwise. And I've got 3 operators telling me that hyperbaric oxygen saved their life with the before and after brain images. So my ears to the ground looking at other scientific data that's been presented, while the current experts in, and I don't think they had malintent, but the current experts in brain health and all these things are saying that no, there's all that stuff snake oil. And I was like, I don't know.
We need more research.
Exactly. So then what I realized is that one of the problems within the brain health community, especially when it comes to treatment, is that there's a lot of skepticism within the industry. So I thought, okay, we need to research these things and prove whether they work or they do not work, right? And that was really the genesis of the Brain Optimization Lab. So I'll give you a great example with hyperbaric oxygen. There's, we've been researching hyperbaric oxygen for 15 years, and we still don't know if it works or not, right? I'll talk to some doctors, oh, it's the best. Talk to other PhDs, oh, it's pseudoscience, it's BS, it doesn't work. The reason that they think that is because there's 100 different studies on hyperbaric oxygen, all with different protocols, some being high atmospheric pressures with high amounts of oxygen, some being low atmospheric pressure with low amounts of oxygen, everything in between with a low number of N, meaning low number of participants. So there's no conclusion of one protocol that's been proven to be effective with a high enough level of participants for it to have any sort of scientific legitimacy. So that's one example of hyperbaric oxygen. The other problem that we saw within the industry is that no one is research, and this is just science in general, right? When Dr. Joe DeTuri says this all the time, but when you are trying to grow a plant, you don't isolate variables. You don't put a bunch of water in the plant and don't give it sunlight and air and soil, right? You don't isolate variables. You put all those three together in a perfect concoction so that the plant can grow an optimal amount of each of those things. It's like when you go to the gym. What happens when you go and you tear your muscles? You go back, you recover, you drink a protein shake, you roll out, you stretch, right? These are the types of multimodality approaches is not something that is being researched within the scientific community. So that was the other thing that we really started to focus on the Brain Optimization Lab is what happens when you start to pair some of these modalities with each other. And then how can we prove through objective data collection that these protocols are working or are not working? And that's really been the genesis of the Brain Optimization Lab.
And your focus on working and not working and all these scientists, man, it's like, look, working or not working is what does the patient say? It's not what your science says. And if you ask me, when it comes to holistic, health, remedies or modalities, however you want to put it, is if you feel better, it's working. Something's working because otherwise you wouldn't feel better. Now, could it be this, it's just, because you did it the first time? But when tens and hundreds and thousands of people that have participated in studies, even though it's a small amount, I'll say, hey, this has helped me. We need to pay attention to that. All right. And it's not, I don't know, man. I just, I'm very,
agreed, dude. If sniffing the Sharpie makes you not suicidal anymore, then sniff the damn Sharpie. Seriously, dude, what cares about you? Yeah, exactly. Like whatever in it. And so the approach that we take at the Brain Optimization Lab is we do brain imaging, we do wearable devices, we do blood work, we do spiritual fitness assessments, and we take a look under the hood and understand what's someone's baseline. Again, we are not diagnosing. We are just saying this is where you are. And then here's the recommended protocol to overcome your specific challenges, right? Like you just said, Bruce, everyone is very unique in what society wants to do and what the medical community wants to do. And what I believe the devil wants to do is to put people in these boxes and diagnose them with things, right? And then that becomes their identity. And then they live in that mindset the rest of their life, when in actuality, they're a unique, individually crafted person by God with very unique life challenges and traumas, right? And they need a unique approach for them rather than this cookie cutter, hey, I met you for 20 minutes. You have this, and that. Here's 4 pills that are going to overcome that. Good luck. See you in 6 months. Don't kill yourself, right? That's pretty much and then you can go talk to someone, which again, I'm not against talk therapy, but there's a lot of talk therapists who I don't think have any sort of right to be giving counsel on people's mental health. And you're just the thing that happens with the brain is when you talk about the same thing over and over and over again, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper ingrained into your memory. And that's the current model. Take pills, numb yourself, and then go talk about the same issue. We're not going to talk about how we can use this to empower you, or we're not going to talk about how to get out of this thought loop.
Yeah, because if you get out of it, I can't give you pills and I can't talk to you and bill, right? I mean, it's when are we going to focus on the patient, right, or the individual? Now, your approach to, we're obviously the brain optimization lab. Your approach to athletes is, I think is it twofold? Like, hey, while you're playing, because you're hurting yourself, right? We know you're hurting yourself, but you got to pay the bills, right? You got to feed the baby mama. You gotta, get the gas in the car, right?
More than one.
And so, what's that?
So more than one baby mama.
Yeah, or more than one baby mama, right? I mean, hey, if you're famous, go for it, right? So, if you can, you got to pay the bills, right? So, is your focus, hey, while you're doing this crazy stuff, and this goes to veterans too, right? That veterans that are out there, that are know they're hurting, but don't want to really talk about it, or just want to act on what they know is probably happening to them, so they can improve their brain health while doing this. And then I guess the focus is after they're done, retired from the military, or or from sports, then you give them the hope that they can improve their brain health and enjoy their life.
So yes. So we just had a talk. We're working with this hockey guy, right? And he was telling us this story about Sidney Crosby about 15 years ago. And when Sidney was, I think, like 17 years old, they were climbing up this mountain, training in the mountains in the off season, and the rest of the guys were bringing up, slugging beers, going up the mountain. They got a 12-pack. Sidney Crosby's talking about gut health and how 90% of the serotonin in your body is made in your gut. And these other hockey players are like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm just trying to
We're
enjoy
hockey players, dude.
Yeah, I'm just trying to enjoy my beer, man. It's the same mentality with all operators, but that's why Sidney Crosby was the best to ever do it. That's why Tom Brady was the best to ever do it. That's why Derrick Henry spends $250,000 on his body a year. That, like, LeBron James, right? Like, all of these guys, the people who invest in their brain and in their body are the ones who become the best of all time, right? That is what that separation is, right? So our approach at the Brain Optimization Lab is to get people to understand that, right? To have a culture change where you're taking care of the things that no one else is taking care of, right? Through your brain health. So what does that do, right? What are our objectives? One is we are in the business of making elite killers, right? Of better athletes, of more productive entrepreneurs, of better human beings, right? That's what we're after. So how do we do that, right? All these modalities are improved just on their own, are proven to increase cognition, increase sleep, increase recovery, increase neuroplasticity, all those things, right? Which is going to help your performance. But then what we're also after is, as we talked about, Bruce, when you go and you play a game, or you go and you go shoot off 8 rockets, you have inflammation in the brain. Just like after you're done with a workout, you have inflammation in your muscles, right? And there has to be protocols and things put in place to reduce that inflammation so that the long-term degradation of your brain is reduced, right? And those long-term consequences, so we hope and so we think, is our hypothesis, is that the risk of long-term degeneration goes down, right? So it's really twofold to your point, Bruce. It's how do we make you a more elite performer now? And then how do we make sure that you are able to protect your money in the future, right? You're able to be a better father to your children, a better spouse, right? A better overall human being. So you can actually enjoy the fruits of your labor down the road instead of being Junior Seau, right? Or some of these other people who, unfortunately, the disease and the injuries got to them, right? That's kind of our thing. And, Jordan and I joke, it's like, hey, how much money did you spend on that chain around your neck? 50 grand? Hey, is that going to get you to your next contract? No, it's not. Hey, how many $100 bills did you throw at the club last night? $10,000? Is that going to help you get to your next multi-million-dollar contract? No. right? So let's start investing into your body and into your brain so that you can make more money down the road. And then you have the capacity and the tools to protect it and live a life that's worth living down the road.
I don't know what your bigger challenge is, getting guys to focus on their brain health or getting them to stop drinking beer, because it's one of those. Hey,
Hey, listen, I love a few beers, so,
oh my Lord, if I could get back the hundreds of thousands of beer cans I've chugged in my life, man, as a soldier.
for us, it's like we're not telling you not to do it. It's just like, hey, let's do like we got a hangover protocol, man. Like let's
Moderation, man.
yeah.
Everybody tells me, I say, man, the Bible always talks about moderation. I was like, where do you see that in the Bible? I go, it's everywhere, man. You just got to look at it, man.
I think it's so what we're really after the brain optimization lab is culture change, man. So it's like we were at Air Force Weapons School, right? Elite, some of the most elite fighter pilots in the world, right? And their culture is the same as every other high performing culture, which is like scotch, popcorn, and like
Girls.
Zins, girls, and Celsius, right? Like that's like the stimulants, women, and booze, right?
Yep.
And then killing people or just being an absolute weapon, right? And that's the pride that comes with it. We do not want to change that culture. We just want to bring in a little bit of balance to that culture where it's like, we get it, but like, hey, if you're not sleeping and you're boozing every night and your nervous system's a wreck and you're crushing stimulants all day, then you cannot be the best of your ability according to science and according to what your brain imaging says. Like, dude, you need some freaking sleep, man.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to regulate
good sleep.
Yeah, exactly. And then they're going to become better and more satisfied and just better overall human beings, right? That's we're after that balance that you're talking about.
And I think that's changing culturally. I mean, as I look at, I compare myself, back in the 80s where, we didn't love, we just, we were just animals, man. I mean, we found our way into the Army. We found our way into Special Forces, and drinking, fighting, and women was just, that's the life, man. And you don't have to grow up either. That's the beautiful thing about the military and about being a professional sports player. You really don't have to grow up, man. You got to do your job, right? The rest of the world, I'll get to maturity when I want to. Right now, I'm going to the club, or I'm going to drink this 12-pack with my friends, and I'm going to the bar to look at girls, right? That's just the life that we had. Now, these newer generations, I mean, people say, they're lazy, whatever. They're a lot more conscientious of themselves, whether it's their spiritual health, their brain health, their body health, and they are way more open to these discussions than my generation is. Right? Like, I'm the last of the baby boomers, dude.
It's to that balance point, Bruce. I think it's like my generation is like yes, we're more conscious. Yes, like we understand our gut and our brain, all that stuff. But I do also wish that we had some more of that tenacity that you guys brought to the table, and that just like getting after it. Because again, it's that balance, dude. Like that warrior in the garden, to my opinion, is like, that's the perfect. You should have both. You should have the ability to turn it on, and you should have the ability to turn it off. And I think a lot of my generation does not have the ability to turn it on, and a lot of your generation does not have the ability to turn it off.
That's a good point, man. That's a good point. We'll have to work on that switch, man, and get that going.
Well, we're
definitely. Yeah. So look, as we close out, tell us about, what you got going on, man. What's going on? What's next? And how do people find you, man? How do people link up with the 38 challenge? How do they support you? And then the brain optimization lab, if they're interested in their brain and body health and improving their resiliency, how do they find you guys, man?
For sure. Yeah. Well, first I want to just end with a little story of hope. But so we through the 38 challenge brain optimization lab, we're working with this veteran right now. I won't disclose his name. But I got connected to him back in March of last year. He shot himself in the head, tried to take his own life, and survived. So this is his story. So he, during the war on terror, was enlisted, right? Was a heavy artillery guy, boots on ground. Had I think two IEDs. I think he rolled over two IEDs 2 separate times. So had two massive brain injuries there, and then was around heavy artillery really his whole career. Had to put his best friend in a body bag in the middle of a firefight in Afghanistan. Got out after, and his one of his other best friends took his life that he served with, and then this guy's wife cheated on him with his business partner, and then at that point, this guy, decided to put a gun in his mouth and pull the trigger. And I'm like, dude, like, that's a lot, man. And he didn't even consider that it was his service or the TBIs that could have led to that decision down the road. Didn't even consider it. But anyways, when he came to us, he had lost like 80 pounds from all the surgeries. His testosterone was at 100. He wasn't sleeping at night. He was grateful to be alive, no longer suicidal, but grateful to be alive. But he was a mess. Fast forward a couple months, his testosterone's at 950 because we got him the things that he needed to be on. He's sleeping 8 to 10 hours a night with an average sleep score of 98%. He's dating again. We have him on a weight gaining plan. I think he's put on like 20 pounds. And his life's completely turned around. And so it's like, those stories are what we're after, Bruce, like those stories of hope. And like, it's very possible, right? It's more than possible if you're willing to put in the work and you're willing to be vulnerable and you hear the messages that we're putting out, like it's 100% possible. So just want to end with that story of hope, but where do you find us and what's coming up? So 38 Challenge, we're shifting towards, again, providing these scholarships to, like the ones I just mentioned to this gentleman, Scott. Well, says his name, won't say his last name, but to the warfighter. And then our next event is May 6th. We have a 38 Challenge event, workout event, Tuesday morning during Soft Week, Special Operations Conference in Tampa, Florida. So if you're in the Tampa area, make sure to register for that. I know you guys will be a part of that, Bruce. We'll be getting after it. And then on the Brain Optimization Lab side of the front, we've got some really exciting projects that we're working on, which I'll catch you up more on some other time, Bruce. But we're partnering with a group in Miami to start working with some NFL players there. And then we've got some letters of support for some pilots some pilot studies with different military groups who are interested in this kind of holistic approach. Because again, we're not doing our goal is to not do the IRB rigorous healthcare model, which I know a lot of operators are sick of because it just nothing gets done that way. So we're trying to, again, be this Trojan horse of human performance and doing the whole process. So you can find us at the38challenge.com. We're currently building a new website for the Brain Optimization Lab, but you can check out the kind of landing page right now at the brainoptimizationlab.com. And anyone who's out there that's listening that needs help, reach out and we'll get you the help you need.
Well, Brandt, man, it's an amazing journey, amazing story. I'm always just astounded by what you're doing as a young man in honor of your brother and trying to help those that are suffering from, these injuries that, they didn't know they had. And sometimes they don't know that there's hope out there. So God bless you and your organizations for what they're doing for our, athletes, veterans, and children. And may the Lord bless you on your journey. I look forward to catching up with you pretty soon.
Sure. Yeah, we'll catch up soon, man. And I'm going to send that. I forgot to send that email out to Legion today, but be able to announce that pretty quickly soon, I think, too, with just what Mac and 38 will be doing with the American Legion to draw more awareness to this. So love you, man. I always appreciate the platform and just appreciate you. And more than man, seriously, you're if there's one guy I could go to hell with a water gun with, it'd be you. So
we'd go down fighting, bro. That's about it, man. Well, thank you so much for your time and your dedication, man. Folks, another great journey. Make sure you find Brandt. And remember, you can honor Captain Matt Brewer by doing that 38 challenge anytime you want. And it doesn't have, it's 38, whatever you want to do, 38 and 38 minutes, just knock it out. It's a great, and trust me, in 38 minutes, It's good, man. You're hurting, dude. I love doing them. I hate
Sounds
doing
easy.
them until I'm done, and then I'll do it again, But that's what we need to do to honor not just Matt, but other men and women that are not here, their sacrifice, and the issue of repetitive brain health. So as we end this episode right here, remember the second International Summit on Repetitive Brain Health will be held September 2nd and 3rd here in Tampa. Please get online, find it. Tickets are going pretty fast. We've got an astounding list of speakers coming in, and our keynotes are world class. Remember, this is the only summit on this issue right now as we push forward. Learn about the legislation that we got forward. That's going to be on our website. Remember the book, free book. Go to our website, www.mpfact.com. Get your book, give it away to all your friends. Get smarter as we continue on this journey of knowledge and awareness and consciousness about the issue of repetitive brain health. So take care of those brains. You only got one. Take care of the ones you love. God bless you all. And we'll see you next time on another episode of Broken Brains. And hey, folks, one more thing. Remember that we now have the Head Smart app on the Google and Apple store. Go ahead and download it. It's a concussion awareness app, but it's the only one that contains information about the issue of repetitive brain trauma and how to look at your kids to make sure that they might have just played too much of the wrong sport too long. They can still play sports. Sports are healthy. Keep them out of contact sports all the time, man. Protect those brains all you got. But download our app, and guess what? It has the book in it. So anyways, see you soon. Thanks so much.